So this morning we're going to look at this first one. God is one. What does this practically mean? And we'll begin first with this. It's a poem by one of my favorites, Rainer Maria Rilke. And I made a little joke a couple weeks ago that it's come to my attention from time to time. Somebody once told me. Anyway, let's skip that. I've made the analogy that my brain is like a backyard filled with cats. Just kind of tends to, it's just a lot of, and so I think sometimes it comes across in the teachings, and somebody said, it's really good, it's just hard to say, like, what are the, could we do like three main points or something? And I understand, and so this was my compromise. I will read this poem, and I will tell you that the interpretive key to everything else that we'll be talking about this morning resides in this poem somewhere. And it's up to you to find it. Yep. Choose your own adventure. Make your own main point. This is Rilke. He observes that what we choose to fight is so tiny. What fights with us is so great. And if only we would let ourselves be dominated, as things do, by some immense storm, then we would become strong too, and not need names. When we win, it's with the small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean the angel who appeared to the wrestlers of the Old Testament. That's where Israel got its name. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply just declined the fight, went away proud and strengthened and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows. By being defeated decisively by constantly greater things. Let me hold that for a second, and then if anybody wants to share, what do you hear in that poem? There's a sense of peace that comes from arriving at the end of yourself and realizing that there's nowhere else to go. Yeah. What was the first thing about when you lose? I heard it from there. You win when you lose. You win even when you lose because there's the opportunity to learn, to gain a lot from it. This is like what we try to teach our children. I'm always pointing to Michael Jordan, who says, don't judge me by my victories. If you're going to judge me by something, let it be by how many times I lost and got up again. Tell my kids, if you can do that without turning into a total jerk, it's still grace when it's bad. Mm-hmm. finally got wore out fighting all these small fights, these inconsequential things that occupy so much of life, and then not even being able to, to win the homecoming game, let alone take on the state champion, and finally turning to fight the big fight, only to discover whoever it is we've been avoiding fighting with is a pacifist. There's a freedom that comes with losing, and maybe a deeper freedom that comes with submitting before having to be made to lose. We could do this the easy way, or we could do this the hard way, says God, every day. I think so. Maybe we're distracting ourselves with all these smaller fights because we fear we don't have the strength required to endure the big fight and maybe the lessons that we'll learn through that. I've had this experience, I'm up here, let go, everyone, just let go and let God. Give it to God. And then I try with something that's too meaningful to let go of. And then letting go just becomes another thing to hold on to. And I think, I'm not letting go good enough.
Or sometimes like the fight provokes like the insight of what you really need to be fighting for.
Mm.
Like the wrestle gets you to the place where you, gets you to the submission, gets you to a place where you're willing to look and see it something differently. And
Yeah.
you learn what you should be fighting, and then the fight has even more value.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so even the thought, I'm not doing a very good job of letting go. Holding on to letting go as a task that I'm not complete. All of the, I remember going through a long period of what they call in the Christian world deconstruction. And it was like every day there was something to let go of, or something new to try to begin to accommodate, even though it didn't seem to me congruent with my model of reality. And my brain just got addicted to solving it. I thought, well, if the old map isn't true, then I got to figure out what the new map is. And so, there it went. And just trying to cut a new key to the kingdom, as they say. And, I was making progress, and then I was not making progress. Anyway, one day, after years of this, I woke up from a deep sleep into a thought stream, trying to resolve some theological issue, as though my brain was working while I was, you're supposed to be resting, man. That's the time when we stop working. If you won't take Sunday off, then, you got to respect some Sabbath around here somewhere. I woke up into a thought stream, and I thought, this is not healthy, and I went and took a shower that morning, and I felt like I was having a nervous breakdown, and it finally just went, and I gave up. I gave up trying to understand. And it wasn't even that afternoon before something like understanding began to materialize in me. I think that what we're ever really actually after is peace, just to know that, we're okay. We can't get there with our mind, because our mind wants to solve. And what we're trying to solve is a mystery that is not solvable. It's infinitely explorable, but not reducible. So peace comes through acceptance, and the reason why the bad stuff is even grace is because sometimes what we need is just a good old-fashioned beat down. Till we learn to let go. I think maybe part of what makes this difficult is this idea that essentially God is not one, that there isn't this one thing happening, that there's the God thing happening, and then there's all this other stuff happening that's somehow outside of God somewhere. And we're always measuring and counting and trying and hoping that we're on the inside of the God thing and not on the outside, because you know what happens if you get on the outside of the God thing. Well, hell, but you know, what is hell? It's fire, and what is fire in the scriptures? It's purification. So sometimes maybe we need to be outside of the God thing, because there's all kinds of stuff that needs to be burned off of us until we can start to see that there's no such thing as outside of the God thing. God is one. There's only this one thing happening. And this means that everything belongs. That's Richard Rohr's saying. Everything belongs. And, you know, if it wasn't meant to be here, then it couldn't be happening. It means the joy and the sorrow, both the clarity and the confusion, the thoughts and the emotions, the calm, quiet, and the intensity, the wandering, the coming home. That there isn't an in and out. It's all happening here in this one unified field of reality that the scriptures call God. This is how St. Paul said it. He said, it's in God that we live and that we move and that we have our being. I paraphrased a bit of his sermon here from Acts 17 like this. In the beginning was undifferentiated wholeness, God, the one from whom the many are made. The Creator has placed each of us exactly where we belong, even if it's in Jacksonville, Florida, okay? That we might learn the longing that leads us home. Through this longing, we seek and we reach for and we even find God. And in our finding, we discover finally that, of course, God's been here all along. Everything belongs. There's only this one thing happening. Sometime back, I was reading the creation poem that opens the book of Genesis, and I was struck by the passive voice of God creating. You know, it's like he spoke reality into existence. He didn't craft it with his hands. But what I was struck by in this reading was how passive the language was. God didn't say, God says, let there be. It's the voice of allowing, letting things happen, letting things unfold as they will. And it's a subtle difference, but it makes a huge difference. It's a subtle change, but it makes a huge difference. Because right there at the beginning of the book is this picture of God not as the mighty doer that puts his hands to the task of shaping reality, but as this passive voice who is allowing what wants to come forward and through to come forward and through. And the only judgment he ever renders on any of it is that it's good. I wrote a poem a while back called The Great Allower, God the Great Allower, allowing all that is to be. So the first practice, this God is one, we're calling it is, this is the practice, ready? Let it happen. This is a paraphrase of a famous poem of Paul's again in Philippians, who looked at Jesus and saw this. He says, Christ, our Lord, being one in nature with God, has by the nature of his being shown us the way. To be as God above all things, we must choose, like God, to be below all things. Equality with God is not something to be grasped, but is something that grasps us and carries us lower still, to the depths of ourselves, to total identification with the other, to full surrender, to death even, and through it. To follow the way of the Master is to become free. Union with God is not an avoidance of sorrow, but a solidarity revealed in suffering. So suffer your sorrows gently and make your home in hope. You know, it's a really useful parenting tactic, being patient. This translates to other areas of life, like most every other area of life, to be patient. I remember when Lee, the guy that started this church, was in the process of retiring. I came to him as a freshly minted pastor and said, you know, with your 30 years of doing this gig, you know, what lesson would you offer to me? And he said, thought for a minute, and then he said, the more urgent something seems, the longer you should take to do it. He's like, you will be amazed at the number of things that seem like they're in crisis mode, and if you just give it a minute, they work themselves out. He said he learned that because early on his nickname was Captain Confrontation. So meditate on the patience of God. Because nothing could be here that isn't meant to be here. Whatever the experience, whatever the judgment about ourselves or others. Jesus said, he said, if you have but faith, you can say to a mountain, move, and it will move. But when we have the mind of Christ, we can understand why that mountain is here in the first place. A lot of times we look at the mountains and we think, that mountain stinks, it's blocking my view. Wish that mountain was shaped a little bit different. Tired of looking at that mountain, it's getting in my way. What is this mountain doing here? Put the mountain here. And then we read the Bible and Jesus says, if you have faith, tell it to move. And we go, move. And it goes. You know, mountain, doesn't say anything. And we go, well, it says if we have faith, we can say to a mountain, move, and it'll move. And we go, I must not have faith. Oh, man. How do I get more faith so I can get that mountain to move?
Just go around.
Yeah, just go around. Okay. Yes, okay, all right, let's balance the wisdom of the West. Just go around, which is true. It's true a lot of the times, right? We're like, there's no way through this mountain, and there's a little road around it. Why won't the mountain move? Well, there's already a path that you can just... Here's an ancient Chinese poem, and it goes, the birds have vanished down the sky. Now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. So, do we go big and do we go strong and do we affect change and we demolish the mountain either through our own strength or through, you know that parable? It's such a funny parable. with the persistent widow. Do you know that one? There's this one that Jesus tells, and it's like there's this widow, and she really wants something or other. I can't remember what she wants. And there's a judge who just I've never heard anybody teach it this way, to be honest. The way I've always heard it taught is the judge is the God character because the judge is the one with the authority. And the widow then must represent us. And the widow wants something, but the judge is like a cold and callous man, it says, and he doesn't really care about her problems. But she keeps coming to him every day, day after day after day after day after day. And Jesus says, and finally the judge is worn down, and he just says, "Fine, woman, have it." And Jesus likens this to prayer as the comparison. But then what he says right after that, he goes, when the Son of Man arrives on earth, will he find any faith? It's a weird story. And if we read it at face value, we have to make the judge be the God character, which would then give us an image of God as a overbusy, you see the picture. And, we can approach prayer in that way, and I don't know how these things work. Maybe the mountain moves because the mountain gets tired of hearing us, But what Jesus seems to say is like, this isn't faith. It's funny, right? You think faith is persistence, but Jesus is like, will I find faith? Because whatever this situation is may be effective, but it isn't faith. Something about faith that begins with acceptance, because faith is trust. And to trust in God is to trust in reality as it is, right before us. So we can go big and go strong and affect change, and sometimes situations call for that. But the thing we got to keep an eye on is that instinct tends to burn out of control really fast. And it turns either into an incredible amount of busyness that carries us away from ourselves and those we love, or it converts into worry. Or we can go small, and we can go slowly, and we can grow deep and learn to accept the reality of the moment for what it actually is. And this is, to me, the path of peace. And when we're able to rest again, like, that thing where, okay, so like my dad has taught me some stuff about construction. He's helped me with a lot of projects around my house. And if you're trying to build something, eventually you run into a thing where it doesn't make sense anymore. You get to a point and it's just, oh shoot, you got a problem that you can't solve. And you go to Home Depot 300 times. And the employees are making fun of you and you still can't figure out. And my dad always told me, let's just sleep on it. My mom used to tell me, give my mom and dad a shout out here. Math never made sense to me, and I would just die on some word problem. And what would happen I couldn't make sense of it, and so then I would have to, of course, make the logical leap to what is the point of any of this? I will never use this again. What is the point of school? What is the point of this world? Why? And I'd wear her down like the persistent widow, and she'd give up, and I wouldn't do the math homework, and I'd get a D, and she probably wouldn't feel good about that. Oh yeah, dude, I know. My sons, they weren't there, but somehow they've picked up the same technique. But what she would always try to advise me was, well, just skip this one and go to one that makes sense to you. Because when we're all stirred up, what we lack is discernment. Let me tell you one of my favorite stories. An old friend told me this. It's a parable about a farmer. I've shared it before, so maybe you've heard it. Once upon a time, there lived a poor farmer who owned almost no possessions outside of a little piece of land and a horse that he and his son shared. One day, the horse ran away. After hearing about this, his neighbors came by in the evening and they said, "Oh, we heard about the horse. Isn't that a shame?" And the farmer replied, "Yeah, we'll see." A little while later, the horse returned and he had 7 wild horses with him. And the neighbors came by that night and they said, "Oh, isn't this wonderful?" And the farmer replied, "We'll see." That same week, his son was thrown from one of the wild horses, broke his leg. The neighbors came by that evening and they said, "Oh, this is terrible." And the farmer said, "We'll see." The next day, the army knocked on the farmer's door because a war had broken out, and all the young men in the village were being drafted to fight, but they wouldn't take his son because of the broken leg. The neighbors came over that night and they said, "It's a miracle." And the farmer said, "We'll see." You can just keep going with that as long as you want. What's the moral of the story?
Can't take things for face value.
Can't.
Usually the freaking out was all done in vain. I'm learning that slowly, and it's interesting to be the calm around the freaking out. But I think it's still good to just not freak out.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah. Most things are neither good or bad, they just are. The fruit in the Garden of Eden that we were instructed not to eat, as the story goes, was the knowledge of good and evil. It's a burden that's too heavy for us to carry, and it's a knowledge too dangerous for us to properly wield. This is label making machine, and it's out of control. We're eating the fruit all day. If we really quiet ourselves and tune into our mind and pay attention to what it's doing. My first encounters with this practice were terrifying. I couldn't believe the amount of judgments that I was making. Moment by moment. It takes a long time of just paying attention to this because it is not a peaceful way to live.
I like the gentleman, the story, the farmer, his attitude and the way he understood. Obviously he's older or something, that's how I pictured it. Just through the course of life, he's now been able to have that walk in that peace and just say, whatever God's going to do, I'm totally trusting him.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point you just kind of want off the roller coaster, don't you? I love it. I hate it. It's awesome. It's bad. It's so good. When's it going to end? It's fun for a little while, but it's exhausting. It's patience. We're saved. Salvation arrives through the suspension of our judgment. This is so good.
The wisdom didn't even come from him.
Yeah.
But somehow he was his storehouse.
And thank you. And that's the trick, if you want to call it that, is can we wait just a little bit longer than we think we can? Which is not the same thing as inaction, you know what I mean? But most of the sermons I heard growing up were like, God can't drive a parked car, and like, you know, you got to slam that baby and drive, hit the interstate, close your eyes, and wait for a miracle. It's like maybe we can stay in the driveway, like just long enough to have a general idea of where we're going, which is usually left or right. That's how it seems to go, right?
A pastor a long time ago used to say that's a person that's full of zeal but not much wisdom.
Yeah,
Raring to go, but not really sure how to get there.
yeah. It,
To drive, close your eyes and go.
full of zeal, but not much wisdom. And you know, we need that too. Like the zeal has to be able to burn itself out. If somebody else snuffs that flame, it leads to depression. So it's kind of like, go for it. Try not to hurt anybody, but especially yourself. But let that thing burn down. And then also, you know, us old timers like me, you seen this widow's peak that's starting here? Thank you. I appreciated that. Compassion up there. You know, like sometimes we need somebody to give us a little kick in the pants. It's a thin line between patience and what's the word? Procrastination. Yeah. Sometimes you know. You already know. And you can let go and let God a little too long. And that's all right. Taskmaster, yeah.
And I can yell at them and make them, but that doesn't make us, like, our relationship isn't in peace. So when I stop just demanding them and making them choose right and wrong, and I empower them and coach them and give them motivation, then there's grace for the right, path. And I feel like that's our relationship with God. We don't have to come to him and, demand, but we can come to him and say, show us.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Misty. Oh, that's some good momming. Yeah. Lucky kids. Hold on, wait, hold on. He said, Wait 1 second. He said a lot of us choose our path out of fear, but fear is disguised as practicality. Yeah, don't rush to choose the quick and easy path, because the long and hard one might be the better one. Oh, this is so good. Okay, I'm going to end with this because I want to talk about the building for a moment. There's a saying that goes, what we resist persists. And if like all these 12-step programs, all these things have taught any of us anything, it's that what's the first step? It's acceptance. And it's admitting defeat. Finally realizing we can't fix ourselves, and also we can't ignore this anymore. Acceptance is not, letting go is not giving up. This is a very challenging and very beautiful prayer, and if you come to the Wednesday night meetup for a limited time, I will print this prayer out on small cards as a door prize, and you can take it home with you and pray it every day. And after we put it up here, you can decide whether you'd want to pray it or not, but this is Thomas Keating. It says, welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me in this moment because I know that it's for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for security. I let go of my desire for approval. I let go of my desire for control. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and the healing action of grace within. And maybe you've noticed this, it just seems that God keeps showing up in our life in ever more disturbing ways, asking, can you relax even in this? Let it happen. Okay. Thus concludes the teaching portion. 2 minutes left. So we talked last week, so I'm going to just refer y'all to that if you got any questions about what is shared in the next 1 minute. But it's kind of awesome. This is all lining up beautifully because we essentially, as a community, are engaging in this practice that we're talking about here together. And what we're asking is this a moment where if we slow ourselves down and pay attention to how we discern that as individuals that we're being led, like what's the honest response? Like pay attention to the first response and then go ahead and pay attention to the next 72 responses and wait until the snow globe settles down. And you get a sense for yourself how you're being led and guided. And so that's the budget. You guys like pie charts? Check that out. Ben, if you want to go to the next one. I broke what I'm sure is a rule in graphic design and put way too many words, but I couldn't reduce it anymore. So I'm going to go over these words all together. It's just so we all know kind of what's going on. Community-wide location vote. So voting. The voting period is now through October 7th. To vote yes, let's stay in the theaters. You just set up a new reoccurring donation of any amount. So when that said, like you can increase what you're currently giving, or you can set up a new reoccurring donation of any amount. And when I say of any amount, I truly mean it. Like this is like a fishes and loaves situation, because what we're looking for is the heart of us. Like, it's not up to me or the staff or the whoever to decide whether we stay or go. It's we're gonna do this like a democracy. Now, normal churches have like a membership and stuff, right? And that's how you solve stuff like this. This is the closest thing we've ever had to like a membership, I guess. But you won't need to get any documents from me if you want to leave and join another church, okay? That's how some memberships work in churches. I've had people bring me their papers from their last church before. I'm like, all right, I'll file this away in my membership drawer here. Did you call me Palpatine? To vote yes and stay, new reoccurring donation of any amount, whatever is given will be multiplied. I really mean that. If our collective heart says yes, then the money will be here. So if you can kick in $5 and you want to vote yes, go for it. To vote no and relocate, you don't have to do anything. Not doing anything would include, waiting until it's over. So this is one of them there. Don't rush, but also, October 7th. If you'd like to cast a yes vote, you can follow that QR, which I hope works. The colors are similar to each other. Somebody go ahead and test that. It's a trick. I'm trying to get you to set up a donation. And then you just write yes. Okay, so you can cancel a reoccurring donation really easily. So if you get, what do they call it, buyer's remorse? Based on the community response, you can just shut it down. It's not hard to do, or adjust it. And after October 7th, we'll tally the votes and we'll get word out, and we'll all be in great shape for voting season next month. It works? Thank you. So we had Corey and I sat with the property manager, finally got a hold of him this week, and we had a really nice, kind of incredible conversation with him, mostly about the real stuff. And we also talked about the building, and he said he's going to have roofers out this week. We're not going to have water features in the building any longer, he says. And he said, Bobby, why didn't you tell me sooner? I got a gentle scolding. And he wants us here. They do want us to stay. And they also would like for us to pay rent. So not much really has changed since last week, except I had a really nice conversation with the landlord. So, as we've been saying all morning, there's no right or wrong. I think we have a pretty clear idea of what the vision is and who we are and what it is that we're here for. I do think that this is a wonderful place to continue operating in that vision because, it's already happening. But it's kind of up for it. So that there's this $4,000 a month gap that we need to close, basically, through this. And so if we decide to do that, then we shall stay and party on. And if not, then we will, we'll see. Over here? We'll see.
How is this going to affect the other clientele that are part of this building?
Yeah. How will this affect the other clientele that are a part of this building? Right. That has been the part that I've been compartmentalizing hardcore because it would be challenging for us as a church community and as a staff, there's life goes on, but it would also affect all these wonderful partnerships that we've made. There's a thriving cafe in the lobby that has become my brother's livelihood and also a legit community hub. It's like Cheers up there. If you guys seen that at the bar, it's true community. And then there's a few other entities that are in here too. Spring River. Spring River High School just launched 3 weeks ago, so this is not very great timing for them. I think if any member of the board is watching, I'm sorry, and we're working on it. But there would just, we would regroup and move on. And
What are the other alternatives?
yeah, there are a number of things that we are looking at. and there probably would be some options, which we can talk about more if that's the direction that we need to go. But they would be like sharing space with, like, where we're Zapcat to somebody else kind of thing, you know? And there's a couple buildings that we've called on. The landlord has some properties that they're building that are smaller. It would be a little ways out before we'd be able to move into one of those places and work with them on building it out. There are some options. We'd stay at the beach. And who knows? It may be awesome. But we'll see. So please vote today, either by voting or not doing anything. And thank you all. Thank you for your, truly the generosity of this place. Did you see that number? It's like $36,000 a month is what we've been averaging, and that is incredible and profoundly generous. And some of you have been extremely generous, and just thank you. And yeah. Yeah.
So, the voting, as far as going to this link,
Yeah.
I guess I'm confused on, sometimes I can pay more a month than other months, just because of the freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
So is it better to vote a flat rate that you know you can do each month, so that it shows recurring on the app, and then if you can pay more, then you can, but ideally,
Yeah.
to vote yes, you've got to click recurring.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Misty says sometimes she can kick in, she's freelance, so sometimes she can kick in more on some months than others. And so should she set up a reoccurring at a number that she knows is sustainable, and then if more comes in for her 1 month to add on top of that. And yes, that would be the idea. Set up a new, because we're trying to get a baseline. We're trying to close that $4,000 gap consistently. Yeah. And that way, if more money comes in than $40,000 to pay rent, we can fix the air conditionings and you know what I mean? We can kind of get ahead instead of catching up. So you guys get it. Yeah, thank you. It's 11:37. If you got babies, you should get them. If not, Corey, you want to come up and, I don't know, play a tune for a minute? And we'll have the communion elements are available. I'll move that chair so you can get to them. The table will be open. You're welcome to hang out for as long as you'd like, as always. And when you leave, please do so in the peace of our Lord. Thank you.